That's a hard conversation to have as a trucking
So
company.
hard.
How do you bring it down? That's hard to believe.
Welcome to This Week in Trucking, the podcast that tells you what you need to know about the trucking market for the week in 30 minutes or less. This week, we're talking about diesel prices, freight market trends, and the operational costs of what it takes to run a trucking company. Plus, we're going to be answering your comments and questions from the past videos. So, hey, Gravir, how's it going? Where is your dad driving today?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, he's still out on the road. He went to Georgia. The South is really hot right now. So the Tennessee market, South Carolina, Atlanta market is really hot for dry van. I think he got over $3 a mile coming back. So yeah, he just
Nice.
delivered that like yesterday. So
Nice. Over
yeah.
$3 a mile is not something you're seeing so much in this market right now.
No, South is turning hot, so that's good. We'll
Is that
discuss
That's
not
not
in
for dry
produce,
van?
there's a produce as well. There's some if you have vented vans and stuff, you can haul some produce as well. But it is Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, all those regions are getting they're pretty good to go into right now. But
Yeah,
it's a produce season effect, yeah, for sure.
sure. So diesel prices for the week, unfortunately, we are still creeping up a little bit in price week over week. We were seeing some down movement into June, and now it's creeping back up. Not a huge move, though. The biggest increases in fuel prices came in the lower Atlantic and Midwest regions, but pretty much it's up across the board, except for the central Atlantic region. So you're in luck this week, Gravier being in Maryland. Maybe the prices are holding steady in your state.
They are holding steady. It'd be good to see how's the retail prices also changing or not. I know these are these are actually retail prices that we do discuss actually. Yeah,
Yeah, highway diesel fuel prices.
yeah.
And the information that we get is from the U.S. Energy Information Agency.
Look, I think we see the lows of the lows this year. I don't think we're going to see those again. And I think the prices went like really low. So
Yeah.
expect them to be a little bit higher in the next coming month.
They're still down mainly from where we were last year, last summer, especially last spring was really a hot diesel market. And so we're still pretty far down from that. So if you're comparing last year's rates to this year's rates and last year's prices to this year's prices, it's actually looking a little bit better this year. But Gravir, what can you tell us about the freight markets this week?
Yeah, the free market this week. So if you look at the DAT, load quotes are up 3%. The truck quotes are down minus 2% roughly this week compared to last week. So that's good. So loads are up about 3%, and the truck quotes are down about 2%. That's a good combination. Dry van rates are still hovering around 205. Flatbed is around 252, staying, and reefer is up just by 1%, right? Now, produce season is still in the works and pretty much holding steady, just seeing small improvements. If we look at the freight waves, the national truckload index, it actually went up from 227 to 231. The national truckload index without fuel also went up by about 5 cents. So there's some positive changes there. I love to look at the freight waves because everything green. I think we're going to show a screenshot here. That's always a good sign. The main thing is also the broker margin is going down. So we went from 0.60 cent to 0.59. That is actually a good sign. So you want to see this number continue to compress. That's a good sign for carriers that broker margins are going down. Essentially, the difference between contract and spot is going down. That's actually a good sign. When the market does come back up, you're going to see spot rates go really up. That's when this whole thing is going to flip, right? The way we're measuring these numbers. So overall, we're staying steady, a little bit of improvements. If you talk about a couple of regions that are really hot, and we'll start doing this as well. This is a new thing on the podcast where we're going to share what are the hot markets in the U.S. right now where you should be going into. Currently, the West Coast, right? But Phoenix, San Diego, Tucson, Ontario, California, Flagstaff, all those areas are really hot just because of produce season. But if you come into the southern region, Tennessee is really hot. Georgia, Kentucky, those are the hottest states. Missouri is not doing bad either right now. Missouri is hot. You look at some parts of northern Texas, Arkansas, and obviously North Carolina, South Carolina. So the South is pretty hot right now. So if you're trying to haul freight, I'd suggest you go into South. And another weird one is Duluth. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Minnesota.
Duluth.
Duluth. Minnesota is really hot right now. So if you're trying to go into Minnesota, that's really hot. And South Bend, Indiana is also hot right now as well.
Are you able to see by equipment type? Because
Yeah.
I know the different markets are gonna. This is all for dry van, right? Can you see anything for reefer or a flatbed?
Yeah, similar for reefer as well. But yeah, this tool allows us to check for reefer and flatbed as well. But yeah, we can share those as well. But mostly all those should correlate.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear where listeners are driving and what kind of equipment they have, because if we can get that information, so leave your comment below of what kind of equipment you run and where you're based out of, because then we can tailor the information to the
Yeah.
people who are listening.
Awesome. Yeah. And Florida, Miami area is completely dead. So yeah, don't go to Miami anymore. It's really cold
Yikes.
in terms of
Yikes.
freight market. Yeah.
Yeah, not in other ways, but
Yeah.
definitely freight market is cold.
Yeah. There's nothing coming out.
Yeah. So the ATRI, which is a big research institute, just came out with a new analysis of the costs of running a trucking company. And this is something that they've been doing and tracking since 2014. So we almost have 10 years of data at this point, which is really interesting. There's a table that was sent, I think, by an Overdrive newsletter just today, highlighting some of the costs and where those costs are going. So if you look at the table over time, fuel costs are actually not an all-time high at all. Actually, last year they really peaked. But if we look all the way back in 2014, we were looking at a even bigger fuel price, higher fuel price than we're paying today, or than we were paying in 2023, right?
Yeah.
But all of these are broken down into the different types of costs of running a trucking business. Is there anything on this table, Gravir, that surprised you at all?
For me, nothing that surprises me. Actually, I think, and when I say surprise, like you hear about these conversations.
Yeah.
I've been hearing about these conversations for 8 to 9 years. Hey, like for example, insurance costs are going up.
Right.
Obviously, I know that they went up from 0.7, essentially 7 cents in 2014 to now almost 10
Almost
cents,
10.
right? Repair makes sense, right? Labor, everything is going up, parts, inflation, that's affecting it. Fuel cost, I knew, right? Fuel costs haven't changed much, right? I think if we start drilling more, we'll probably see fuel costs come down in 24 and 25. I think we're about to be the biggest oil producing country. I think we're going to probably produce more than Saudi Arabia. So truck trailer payments make sense. Trucks have gotten really expensive. I was just talking to my dad the other day. He bought his truck for $85,000 in 2001, like a brand new truck. Today they're double that. So I knew about that. Permits, right? Permits have gone down a little bit, right? Permits and licenses just by a few, like a half a cent or something. That is so surprising. Tires have remained constant. That's a surprise. But
Is
yeah,
it?
no.
Do you
Yeah,
usually
like
think of tires going up with everything else?
I just think of everything will go up, right? Generally,
Yeah.
my thought is that, well, why wouldn't everything go up? But I can
Yeah.
see why fuel and tires won't. Driver wages is another one, but that makes sense, right?
That's
it should go
the
up.
one that surprised me the most, was really 78 cents a mile.
Not anymore.
How accurate is
No, I think the survey, I know a lot of companies that cannot afford 77 cents anymore and they're bringing it
Yeah.
down. That's a hard conversation to have as a trucking
so
company.
hard?
How do you bring it down? I
Yeah.
don't see that 70 cents. That's hard to believe.
That's really hard to believe. Even in 2023, even if you're not talking about right now, we're talking 6 to 18 months ago. Cast your mind back to
Yeah.
all the way back to 2023. This is a really high number. I question the accuracy of this number.
That's why an owner operator can really compete with the
Yeah.
US Expresses and the Landstars and the larger carriers. Why? Because their driver wage, something that they can also take home. They can also
Right.
live in the truck for longer, run it, and actually go through the losses and just go through the recession. They can they work on their own trucks rather than going into the repair shops every time. And that's why more and more owner operators that are able to survive this. And now you're seeing a lot of big companies. I think there's this company out of Texas that just went out. I think 500 to 500 plus trucks. But that's really surprising. That is something that it goes directly into the owner operators, that's 77 cents. That's why in some areas it doesn't make sense to be an owner operator. It's better to be a company driver. So if this number is true, you're making 77.
Right. Depends on how much experience you have, though, right? Because if you're new, green, you probably shouldn't be running your own trucking company if you're just out of CDL school. I do know that a lot of people go into business for themselves because carriers just aren't paying these kinds of wages. But I'm interested to know if anybody listening is a company driver. Does this track? Is this accurate? What do you think? And what have you seen? Or if you've been a company driver before, what have you seen? Or what are you paying?
It'll still lucrative. You look at it, out of $22.20. That's what they're saying in this report that it costs to run a truck. If you're an owner operator, you should be at least taking home 77 plus the driver benefits. You're making about 95 cents, right? So anything over 227 is what you're getting as a business owner. And you should separate these two things, by the way, right? Okay, what is my driver wage as a company driver, and what is a truck making, right? Because that takes investment as well, right? And that's why you see like a lot of people are able to survive is because they can just survive off of the driver wages and keep themselves alive until the times get better. So.
Right, and then they can take real advantage of higher rates.
Yeah. Wow. $1.70 to $2.27. What is that? Almost a 57-cent increase in operational cost from
Over 9 years.
over 9 years. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And the rates are still the same, I think.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I know, right? But if this is true, it's good news for driver wages. I'm happy about that. Again, if it's accurate, I'm
Yeah.
really happy about that because I think we hear a lot about. I still think drivers are underpaid. I'm always going to think drivers are underpaid, but I think this is really good news. That's moving in the right direction if it's accurate.
Yeah. I think it's more probably closer to 70 cents. Or at least it's getting renegotiated. I think we're gonna probably see those things, the driver wages come down.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So we got a couple of interesting comments from our videos about electric vehicles and zero-emission vehicles. One in particular from Grazing Apprentice commented, "It's called a hybrid. You folks just like to talk about full-blown EV because it's easier to dismiss, but hybrid fixes most of the issues that EVs have." So I'm curious, Gurveer, how much do you know about hybrid trucks and hybrid technology?
Not much, but I would like to learn more though. So
Lucky for you, I did some research on it because your nerd is always going to do that research. So there are a couple of hybrids on the market. I did not find any sleeper cabs on the market though. So I think for long haul, this is still not quite available, although I could be wrong because they may just be out there and not really searchable. But they might not be really beneficial for long haul either because of the hybrid technology is recharging your battery when you're braking. So if you're on a highway for most of the time and you're not braking a ton, you're not recharging that battery. You're not getting that benefit of being able to use the battery because it's not going to recharge as much. Whereas if you're a local or maybe regional, then you're braking more, you're probably recharging that battery more, and that's probably more useful to you in those kinds of routes.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Our add-on hybrid systems that you can put on your truck, actually one, I don't know if they came out at the beginning of this year, but there was a really good article on them, Revoy, that has a hybrid system that you can put on, and it's a system that actually hooks on just like a regular trailer, and it goes between the cab and the trailer.
Yeah.
There's also other ones, Tandem, Helion. So I found a couple of different options that they have for hybrid systems that you can attach to an internal combustion truck. But they are pretty expensive and they're heavy. So if you're already, sometimes I saw some comments that were like, if you're doing heavy haul, then it makes sense because it's not going to make that much of a difference if you're already doing heavy loads. But if you're not doing super heavy loads and you put something like this on your truck, it might cancel out some of the benefits of the fuel economy because you're having to pull more weight down the expressway, right?
Yeah, hybrid makes more sense though. I think it's more feasible given all the restrictions with total EVs.
Maybe. I did see a comment where someone mentioned that one of the add-on hybrid systems that you can put on your truck costs $30,000 and saves you between 4 and 6 miles per gallon. Adds 4 to 6 miles per gallon to your fuel economy. Okay, so this with a grain of salt, because this was all published, this comment was published 2 years ago, and it wasn't exactly a super reputable source, but I did the math on this. So best case scenario, let's say it adds 6 miles per gallon to your fuel economy. That takes you from, let's say an average of a Class 8 truck is about 6.57, right? Let's say best case scenario, we're being really optimistic here. It's going to take you to 13.5 miles per gallon. If you drive 100,000 miles in a year, would save you by this week's fuel price. That would save you about $26,000 in fuel in a year. So that sounds like a lot, but remember that you had to pay $30,000 for the system, right? But you're still, by the end of the year, you're still in the hole about $4,000 plus any maintenance that you had to do on it.
Yeah.
Now, the benefit of this is that I don't really know how these things work and I'd like to look into it, but it seems to me, just thinking about it, if it does break down, your whole truck hasn't broken down. It's just this add-on part that's broken down. So maybe you can unhook it or take it off of your truck so that you can just keep going without having to totally break down, right? So that is one benefit over an electric truck. But what does it take to then pull that to somewhere where it can get maintenance? And how much does that maintenance cost? And how many people actually know how to service something like that, right? So the big unknown here, which is the maintenance cost of something like this.
Yeah. It's not a bad investment though, but I don't think that number is.
It also depends on the lifespan of it. of the thing itself. If the
Can't be a
lifespan
year
of
wrong.
it is like 5 or even 10 years, and that's an awesome investment, because if you can save $25,000 a year on fuel, that's crazy good. But
100%. Yeah.
there's still like unknowns, and I think it's going to be a lot harder for somebody with 1 truck or 5 trucks, or even 10 or 20 trucks, to justify investing in something like this when there are still so many unknowns. When you have a fleet of 1,000 trucks, you can afford to test this out and see if it works, right? You could just buy one of them, see if it
Yeah.
works. And if it doesn't, no big deal. But it's harder for a small fleet to test this out.
Yeah, generally also the larger companies test these things first, right? By the way, that those numbers are really good. I think by the way, I don't think that exists. I don't know who the company is, and if it's a random comment, it doesn't come from a legitimate source. I don't think there's anything
It was
like,
it was citing a particular brand, but the cost, so I could
yeah,
validate the
by the
information about how
numbers,
much it would save you, but I don't
yeah,
know how much the cost was, because they don't put cost information out on there. Also, I don't know. Again, I've actually linked in with a couple of CEOs at these companies to see if we can get some answers from them. But I don't know if they actually make them available to small fleets, right? Because I don't
yeah,
know if it's really worth it to them to sell to, or try to convince a smaller fleet to do this. I'm guessing that they're trying to sell to the big fleets, right? The big brokers that have a carrier arm, so that they can actually make decent money and sell a bunch of these at once. So I don't even know if they make them available to small fleets.
I did hear about. I think it ended up on FreightWave, so that's legitimate. They add
Yeah.
like a giant thing behind
Yep.
your truck. It looks like additional sleeper unit.
Helion is the same. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna look into it. It sits between the trailer and the cab, and it's actually really interesting. I'm looking at it right now. I don't think they have pricing here.
They don't.
Yeah, but it's
Which
interesting.
tells you a lot, right? Like, it's not like something you can just order, really make it that easy, right?
Yeah,
It seems like they're selective in who can buy it. But who knows? So I actually reached out to the CEO of Revoy, and let's see if we can get him on the pod to ask him
but
about
they're
it.
actually. It's interesting. I'm looking at their site right now. They're actually leasing it to you. They just charge you a fee.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So if you're an owner operator, you're gonna have to, like, electric trucks. The truck, they say, costs a lot,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
they're like, conventionally you have 6 to 8 miles per gallon, 0 miles of electric range. They'll give you 250 miles, and the upfront cost is 0, and the risk is 0. But you just pay them a fee, like a monthly fee to lease out that unit.
It's a cool model.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting. Somebody should get it and try it out.
Do you think we could convince your dad to get something like that?
I don't know. Truckers are like, they stick with the status quo. Let's see. You'd be like, yeah, you already tried this whole
He's
Tesla
pretty old
electric
school,
thing.
right?
Yeah, and just leave my truck alone. I think that's going to be his response. He's stop making me a guinea pig for everything. So, yeah.
We had another comment about electric trucks that said, "No way would I want to sleep in an electric truck. That is what long haul drivers have to do. Also, electric trucks wouldn't work well in the winter up north. I don't think I need to explain why." So
Yeah.
this was responding to a video where we were questioning whether or not electric trucks were viable for the long haul. We didn't talk about the experience that drivers have in the vehicles. Now, Brian from CalStar said that pretty much every driver that he's talked to that's hopped in a electric truck has really loved the experience and loves the experience of driving those things because they're so smooth. But they don't have any sleeper cabs right now that I'm aware of. I'm wondering, are people worried that that would be unsafe to sleep in an electric truck? I guess I don't really know where that comment comes from.
I'm not sure. Maybe safety over the batteries. You've seen some Teslas that have weird things have happened to Teslas. So yeah, I'm sure if there's like a small chance that really it can be a challenge for people to get comfortable with it. So I'm sure there could be
Right.
something there. I don't know enough about it, but just because you sometimes hear about Teslas like just like blowing up or catching fire or some shit, like maybe that could be the reason why someone may not feel comfortable.
Yeah, maybe,
Again,
but
there's a lot of batteries, but yeah, so.
yeah, I guess I get that, but I don't know, aren't diesel trucks like also full of flammable liquid? Like,
Yeah, you're literally sleeping above a fuel tank right now.
I don't know. I guess I don't buy it. I don't see how electric trucks would be more dangerous, but I don't know. I actually don't know the physics of it. So if you want to, whoever left that comment, if you want to explain more, would love to understand that a little bit more. I do know the point about weather is a really good one. A lot of electric trucks are being tested in places like California and Texas, which is good because there's a lot of trucking in California and Texas, right? But I do wonder how they perform in really cold conditions. That's actually the reason why I probably wouldn't buy an electric car anytime soon. Not only are they pretty cost prohibitive, But I also worry about driving in the country on roads. I'm in Michigan, so you can't get around cold weather up here.
Yeah. And this Revoy hybrid thing also weighs about 14,000 pounds. So you can't, the maximum payload that you could take is probably, I don't know, 35,000, thirty
Right.
thousand or something, depending on other things. But yeah, I think we'll get there though. I think with
Yeah.
innovations and everybody innovating and technology getting better, I think we'll definitely get there. But this is I like this concept better than fully electric for sure.
Yeah, I just think it gets us part of the way there, and that's better than getting there at all, right? Even the stuff around, I know there's a lot of environmental issues around biofuels and using land use. You say people who think biofuels are so much better than regular fossil fuels. Maybe in some ways they are environmentally better, but in other ways they're going to take up a ton of land to grow all that corn and soybeans. So there's a lot of considerations. You have to weigh the impacts of it. And anything that kind of gets us close to something that's better, healthier for drivers, smoother, safer, is better is better.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I still don't know where we would charge these things, but
I think it's probably mainly for bigger shippers and carriers, right? Because they're going to have places they can build out that infrastructure for themselves.
yeah, totally.
Had another comment from our episode about truck parking. So that was a couple weeks ago. Lynn Jr. commented, I could not agree more. Most people have no idea in the United States how much they rely on truck drivers for their daily lives. Literally everything gets delivered by truck drivers. This is so true. And this is something that I didn't fully appreciate until I started working for Bobtail a couple years ago. Just how dependent I am personally on stuff that gets delivered by trucks, and literally everybody in this country is. And again, I said it before, my eyes, truck drivers will never get paid enough, and truck drivers will never get enough credit.
Yeah. And also yesterday there was a new legislation that included $200 million for truck parking. So that's a good thing. I don't know if the $200 million is enough, but at least it's something that gets started. And I think there should be more free parking than paid parking, right?
Totally.
Obviously, the government should be doing more with rest areas and all those things to be providing more free parking. $20 a day, $30 a day for parking, that eats a lot of the margin away, right?
Yeah.
That's free dinner and free lunch for truck drivers, and that's now being spent for just parking your truck somewhere. So definitely, or maybe it's a combination of both. And that's something we discussed in a few episodes ago.
Private and public together. Yeah. Again, more parking would be better. And whether it comes from a private source or a public source is maybe better for the driver in the short term because they don't have to pay for it. But maybe public or maybe a private investment can be a little more sustainable, and you're going to have that truck parking for a longer period of time. And over time, maybe paid parking is better, but it can't be that high. Then it's just not feasible.
100%. Makes total sense. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Gravir, that's what I have for This Week in Trucking today. I hope everyone is safe and secure for the next week's holiday, and we will see you in a couple weeks.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Drive safe.